Much like the knocked-up zombie mommy of its narrative world, 28 Years Later gives birth to what has the striking feel of a never-before-experienced genre mashup. A tried-and-true zombie horror flick fused with the tone and energy of a sprawling, Lord of the Rings-esque, almost biblical fantasy epic. But perhaps even more impressive than this series' tonal deviation with the confidence of an alpha zombie swinging his offensively big dick around, is how this vibe shift is ultimately embraced with the creatively pure intent of honoring the themes and ideas this 3-movie and counting series has been exploring since those initial 28 days of exposure. So let's talk about 28 Years Later, and the beautiful genre evolution that can occur when a writer and a director at the top of their game reunite their creative powers to craft something that feels modernly hopeless, hopelessly honest, and honestly just plain cool to look at and listen to. But first, 28 years earlier follows Jimmy, who hasn't been right in the head since his favorite children's television program got cancelled. But who cares, because 28 Years Later follows Spike, who after going on Bring Your Son to Kill Smelly Naked Homeless Forest People for No Reason Day with his dad Jamie, discovers his dad doesn't kill smelly naked homeless forest people for no reason because it's the right thing to do. He does it because it's a good way to get laid, which makes Spike's mom Isla all hot and bothered.
Why am I feeling so hot?
But she can't remember why because she suffers from a powerful strain of brain rot known as cancer. So Spike kidnaps his mom and takes her on a quest to cure her brain rot before her TikTok runs out, which leads to meeting Eric.
I'm Eric.
Whose confusion over the backwater customs of mothers calling their sons father around these parts,
Why does she call you dad? That's weird.
leads to even more confusion over why Spike and Isla would want to keep a baby alive that was just birthed from mutant homeless lady parts.
That's weird.
Which then leads to Eric getting viciously torn apart.
That's weird.
So Spike and Isla take off with their miracle freak baby to go get freaky at the Bone Temple. Not the one where Jared Leto sacrifices his virgins, but the one that is home to Dr. Kelson, who proposes curing Isla's cancer with a risky procedure that involves killing her, which suspiciously results in Kelson getting the exact ornament he needs to complete his personal collection of human skulls.
Sussy baka.
So Spike leaves, drops off the baby at his village like it's yesterday's bagels for the homeless shelter, and joins a group of political radicalists and badass Power Ranger jammies who advocate with violence against the unfair canceling of peak children's television programming.
Watching television shows doesn't create psycho killers. Canceling TV shows does.
In order to really dig up and slurp up the subsurface goodies of 28 Years Later, let's start by rewinding our camcorders back to the first month of infection. 28 Days Later is an intriguing revisit in a post-28 years world, not only because this image corrupted my innocent virginal eyes forever after shitting my pants to it, but also because the main character of 28 Days, Jim, lays the character arc groundwork that will be echoed for many months and years to come in this world. Jim's story begins when he wakes from a coma to find all that he knew and coveted shattered. With his parents' lives ended as a result of a reality consumed in rage and darkness, the movie becomes a thematic battleground between two head-butting worldviews. Jim's humanity first outlook, instilled by the love and optimism of his parents,
I think they're good people.
and fellow survivor / potential lover Selena's militant outlook, instilled by uncertainty in a maddening, chaotic world.
That's nice, but you should be more concerned about whether they're going to slow you down.
Here, Jim and Selena's embodiments of the realist versus the dreamer aren't depicted so much as opposing forces, but more as two essential sides of the human survival coin. Jim learns the value of Selena's strict militancy, owing his physical survival to her, and Selena learns the value of Jim's humanity, owing her will to keep surviving to Jim's insistence on maintaining a small family unit, despite this being counterintuitive to her physical survival. But the actual need for humanity in such a bleak predator-prey reality is what the narrative ultimately challenges, as Selena's callous militant mentality evolves into a final boss of sorts that all the main characters have to confront by the third act, now embodied by Major Henry West and his gang of military goons, representing the idea that survival of the fittest must be embraced, as it reflects a true state of normalcy for human beings.
This is what I've seen in the 4 weeks since infection. People killing people.
But by the end, despite Jim having to become as savage and violent as the infected to retaliate and save his new family, he's never fully taken by it, embracing a brutish rage only for the sake of protecting them.
I thought he was biting you.
Kissing her.
The movie is very clear in its optimism, as humanity is what wins the day and perseveres, while Major West is defeated and ultimately consumed by his bleak, philosophical view of humanity. But as we'll come to know well, evolution is a constant in this world. And 28 weeks later, the spirit of Major West's small military unit that was all too willing to trade humanitarianism in for protection finds new life in a massive American NATO operation, where strict quarantine lines are drawn in the name of safety, as the repopulation of London commences due to the infected slowly dying off from starvation. 28 Weeks Later may not have been written by Alex Garland and directed by Danny Boyle as Days and Years were, but it's quite fascinating to examine just how thematically in step this movie keeps with the others. In the same way the military attempts to protect and control the ugliness of the infection, Don attempts to protect and control his kids' perception of a rather ugly decision he made. Which is to say, he tells them there was nothing he could have done about their mother's death, when in reality there might have been something he could have done, but running away to find a clean pair of underwear instead seemed more important at the time. Lying as a form of love, protection. But reality reveals itself when Mother returns with a dire need for some Visine. Turns out she's a carrier of the virus, but has a 1 in a million chance immunity that's kept her alive. Both the truth and nature cannot be contained, nor the truth about man's nature. The innate, selfish side of Dawn, the survival of the fittest instinct that took over in a high adrenaline moment, can't stay suppressed.
You said you saw her die.
I didn't say that.
You did. You said you saw her die. You did.
It explodes out in cosmic horror-like fashion. The barriers of protection Don built around his kids all go to hell, same as the quarantine lines the military drew around London, causing them to go full military mind and kill everyone, infected or not. Young Tammy and Andy are the anchoring characters of Weeks, as they join Doyle and Scarlett on a quest centered around a belief in humanity over militancy, paralleling Jim and his group's journey. The two siblings may contain the same genetic immunity as their mother, and thus may be the answer to a cure. And though Doyle and Scarlett both choose self-sacrifice for the greater good of humanity over the military's choice to sacrifice innocent people for the greater good, 28 Weeks Later ends on a uniquely bleak note for this series, where humanity ends up screwed specifically due to the core character's humanitarian efforts. Because turns out Andy is immune, but can still infect others just like Mommy Dearest. And when the last standing military dude makes the humane choice to escort the kids out from London into safety, rather than kill them or leave them in quarantine, this decision directly leads to the infection reigniting and spreading further and stronger than ever. So, as much as this movie is a continued critique on militancy and sacrificing others for the greater good, militancy and sacrificing others for the greater good would have actually saved a hell of a lot more lives. Go figure.
Tracy! Fucking Viking warrior! Viking warrior! Tracy! Viking warrior!
28 Years Later continues the 28 insert timeframe trend of following a lead character with an innocent worldview, only for that innocence to be muddied from confronting the ugly realities of the world. And as is tradition, Spike's youthful innocence is contained and preserved by a greater protective militancy, his small quarantined village existing within an even larger quarantined island, where everyone within, infected or not, is left to fend for themselves as the rest of the world evolves on. Yet, unlike the embodiments of militancy we witnessed previously in this series, there is far more nuance in this village community's approach to its strict protection through strict parameters. We haven't explored much of the outside world's perspective on this situation yet. One or both of the next two movies in this intended trilogy will likely dive further into that, but it's safe to say that the rest of the planet wants to shut out and forget their tragic historic failure to save the British mainland, and just as well keep that nasty rage virus from spreading. Interestingly enough, Spike's community approaches their situation similarly, shutting out the realities of the island around them, keeping it all at a safe distance. And when one group of people keeps another group of people distanced in the name of safety, myth and superstition inevitably fill the vacancy of actual acquired knowledge. Just as the rest of the world would have their own imagined ideas of what the island survivors are like.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of inbreeding around these parts.
Spike's people raise their young with separatist beliefs when it comes to the infected and all other outsiders on the island, teaching them the good old us versus them ideal through song and battle training.
Hey! Hot!
Their technology has devolved and reverted to the old ways, along with the various roles and systems for maintaining their community. But like I said, nuance, because why wouldn't these people with no hope for a better future, with their minds set only on survival, not look to the traditions of old for a hope and purpose? And that's what this new trilogy appears to be exploring with a genuine sense of empathy. The very human, very easy to believe idea that the past was better. That the old ways of tradition and community equated to a happier, more fulfilled life for all. But as we come to see through these people who have had no choice but to go back to the ways of spears and arrows and kill or be killed survival, lies must be internalized and empathy must be contained only to your tribe. Spike's entire journey stems from being made aware of the myth he's been indoctrinated into, that the monstrous stories and drawings of the infected he's known his whole life aren't accurate reflections of their much more complicated reality. Because as downright scary and threatening as the infected are, I mean, who wouldn't be threatened by the size of bro? There's no honor in needlessly invading their territory and violently slaughtering them in the name of some arbitrary initiation ceremony. Like Spike, we're made to see the visceral, violent reality, that these are conscious, confused living beings who can experience some sense of pain and loss, no different than any uninfected human.
Dad!
The entire Boots
moving up and down again.
Scene as Jamie and Spike exit the village borders feels like the spirit of all who have killed and been killed by man's inclination to draw lines and demonize, to go to war against the other, rising and chanting as yet another child is initiated into the senseless march toward violence. A cycle engraved in the very DNA of the human animal. And as is fitting with Garland's filmography, especially as of late, this is all linked to humanity's natural inclination to war with itself and inevitably self-destruct as a result. And I'm really tempted to highlight how much this guy from Garland's Men looks a lot like this guy in years, and dive into all the implications around nature and its metaphorical representation through sluggish, mythical fat forest dudes that crawl through grass and shit, but I'm gonna resist and keep this one tight.
Tight like a tiger!
You guys could let me know your theories on that one. Still, the overall point being, war is an aspect of the old world that we are quick to glamorize the more we otherize. But there's nothing glamorous about it when it's forced to be lived in day to day. The perversion of it, the lingering fear that you learn to live with and carry, and eventually even enjoy.
I really like it.
The commune humans have devolved in a sense, while the infected evolve. The most suppressed truth of all being that the gap between human and infected grows thinner and thinner the more we honestly compare them. Animalistic rage and anger isn't just inherent in the infected, we also see flashes of it within these humans who believe themselves separate and superior. From the confusion and terror and rage that bursts out of Isla as her mind deteriorates, to Jamie's inability to control his rage when his son speaks the truths he'd rather not confront, unable to control its power over him. So much is centered on denial in this little community. Deny the fear. Deny the fact that you just murdered another conscious living being's family. Deny your wife's physical and mental decline. Deny death itself. And all these traits are embodied in Jamie through Spike's eyes, because Jamie's trying to teach his son what it means to fill the role of a man in this world, how to go along with the narrative and the violence, how to be a strong, militant soldier.
The infection takes away their minds. He's got no mind, he's got no soul.
But the lie is just too obvious to Spike.
They're all lying, Mum.
Because the sad truth is, it's just
People killing people, which is much what I saw in the 4 weeks before infection. And the 4 weeks before that, and before that, as far back as I care to remember. People killing people.
Jamie leading the celebration after Spike's return home is shot like an almost surreal storybook retelling, because that's precisely what Jamie's doing, fabricating the truth with theater, providing a warm candle of fiction for the village to gather around. This tribe needs to believe in the myth of valor and violence, of their own alpha who took his son out and destroyed the enemy tribe for glory. That beautifully shot sequence of Jamie and Spike running back to the village as a hulking infected alpha chases them down has the vibe of nature's cosmic shadow closing in on them, because violence is a zero-sum game. It only begets more violence. And that's the truth of the natural world, no matter how much the human mind wants to paint it over with myths and stories. Spike is a child realizing for the first time the lies adults tell themselves and each other, thus taking his own first steps into adulthood. but also still in childlike fashion, he has a narrowed view on this disappointing revelation. Jamie is neglecting his dying wife and cheating on her, but he's also doing this as a defense mechanism, as a way of avoiding a painful truth. This may not excuse Jamie's actions, but there is a difference between actual ill intent and the collateral damage that occurs from lying to oneself. Spike's reaction is to run away with his mom, and in this, Spike too is pursuing his own naive fairy tale belief. A belief that a doctor who hasn't been practicing for over 20 years will have the fix-all cure for his dying mother. Because again, it's human nature to need to believe while surviving in a hopelessly cruel hellscape. And I'd wager that this whole 3-movie arc for Spike will be a hero's journey that will, in some sense, conclude in a return home from his youthful rebellion to accept all the good and bad that exists within his father and his community. After all, he's soon to have a front row seat to the evil that can result from a man who had no father, no adult supervision whatsoever, flawed or not, to help guide him through this relentless world.
My name's Jimmy. Let's be pals.
Jimmy isn't much of a fully formed character in this series yet, but his presence still looms heavy over this chapter. Jimmy got a father who forsook him.
Papa, why have you forsaken me?
Spike got a father who both forsook and loved him at the same time. Thus, I think Jimmy will be what Spike could have been without any love or guidance from his father, which is, of course, the leader of an evil Teletubby Power Ranger cult. All in all, like Jim and Selena's dynamic, though Spike more embodies the humanitarian perspective, and his father the militant, he still learns a hell of a lot more valuable survivalist lessons from his father than he may be ready to admit yet.
We might as well bring him. We gotta move. The more infected come.
Probably. They would have heard the noise.
And if it turns out through plot twist revelations down the line that Jamie is actually an even bigger asshole than this movie let on, I'll be deleting all comments that call me out for being wrong. Because what is a pretentious YouTuber if not a fragile, insecure, not quite alpha-sized YouTuber? In any event, what we find by the end of this first of 3 parts journey is that in this cruel yet somehow still beautiful world of fractured and scattered faiths, ideologies, and cultish belief systems, is the same wisdom that can be found at the core of virtually all horror fiction. Good, bad, evil, empathetic, animalistic, whatever the person or group of people, there are no real separations, no real lines that divide any of us, because we're all the same and that we're all headed for the exact same thing. Assimilation into that great big creepy Christmas tree of death. Dr. Kelson is like the weird, reclusive troll everyone in the land fears and warns their children to stay away from. But in the end, we find this is mostly because he holds a wisdom too scary for the tribalized mind to confront. When Kelson looks at the infected, he doesn't see the other. He sees scared, angry, confused beings living as is in their nature. In other words, he sees the internet. He sees just another group of human beings. Spike, like his dad, rejects the idea of death. Rejects the fact that his mother is dying and there's nothing he can do about it. Death is Spike's dragon in this movie, the great big scary beast he must journey to slay. And like the breath of the dragon, fire acts as a visual motif for death throughout. When Jamie saw that burning flame near Kelson years ago, he ran in fear.
We turned and ran.
But Spike runs towards this fire with the belief that he can conquer it, bend it to his will, only to instead find a cathedral of acceptance. A monument to death's inevitability.
Remember death. Remember, you must die.
And through this acceptance of the great equalizer, the fleeting qualities of life and love become most valuable of all.
Remember, you must love.
Like poor Eric's biological rot disposing and mixing into the river as Kelson turns him into an ornament, a visual showing the fundamental elements of life and death absorbing into each other, Isla accepts her place in this beautiful and horrifying cycle while holding new life in her arms. A decaying human nurturing the literal miracle of life that will take her place in the cycle, not to mention her name. Spike begins the movie with a ceremonial initiation into the confrontational and ugly side of death, and ends it with a sort of ceremony of seeing its beauty through acceptance. As Spike processes his newfound perspective on death, sits with his dragon rather than fights it, the fire all around him glides in a cosmic symphony, a flowing, chaotic dance for all the lights that have and will be extinguished in this beautiful and terrifying animal experience we call existence.
There are many kinds of death. Some are better than others.
Dad?
The best are peaceful.
That's weird.